Welcome to this episode of Menopause Conversations. I'm grinning like a Cheshire cat because I've already been laughing with my next guest already. And that will become apparent because I am delighted to welcome the wonderful Zeph Churchill. Hello, Zeph. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you, Amantha. Good morning.
Good morning with her sunny disposition. So let me do a proper introduction. So I'm joined by the brilliantly funny and fiercely educational Zeph Churchill. She's a former nurse turned stand-up comedian. She's shaking up menopause talks, and I've witnessed one of her talks, and I honestly have belly laughed so hard that I had muscles there that I didn't know actually existed. They woke up, Zeph, literally, quite truly. But it's not just the humour, it's the hard-hitting facts that she presents us with as well. So if you think menopause is really all doom, gloom and damp knickers for all the wrong reasons, then I think you'll think again after today's interview because she is absolutely on a mission to combine humour with hard-hitting facts. She cuts through the nonsense really and truly. And honestly, she'll put an earworm in your ear like she did for me that I was singing your song for days after. But she'll allude more to that later. But Zeph, it's so wonderful to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me come on today.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And you are actually preparing, you've got gigs and things coming up. You're preparing for something that you're doing this weekend. But let's get into it, shall we, and talk about. So I first met you alongside the wonderful Helen Tomlinson, who is the government's former employment champion for menopause. And Helen has and continues to do amazing work in this space.
Mm.
And I know she's a mutual friend of ours, but she fantastically brought you to the No Time to Step Back meeting for businesses. And you just had us all in your palm, raptured. But you also had us ogling at your crocheted bosom, which was really quite interesting. So tell me, what made you swap being a nurse for stand up and tell us a bit more about how you use that comedy to translate the menopause conversation whilst keeping it totally educational.
I became sort of a women's health specialist in the surgery. There wasn't anybody doing that. I'd been a nurse practitioner for 27 years. And we got to a point with some of the old research where we had GPs saying, no, just tell them to go to Holland and Barrett. We're not going to give them HRT. No, no. And then I started seeing women and talking to them, and I was given a 10-minute appointment. And in that 10-minute appointment, you could just about manage a prescription for HRT. But actually, these women were coming in with enormous lists. And I'd look at them and there'd be one side of A4, and then I'd turn it over, and those would be all their symptoms. And then the more I found out, the more I learned. I'm a member of the British Menopause Society. There was an awful lot of research into women being empowered. And I wanted to say to them, are you exercising? Let's look at your weight. We know the risks for breast cancer and lifestyle really are associated with being overweight, more so than smoking. We needed to look at all of that. We needed to look at mindfulness, CBT, all of those things that are all packaged into menopause care. And I just didn't feel that we were caring enough or empowering women to be able to look after themselves. So I thought there has to be another way. I'm trying to squash into an appointment. I've got a waiting list. There are other things I have to do. I can't just deal with menopause, but I must be able to do it in another way. So I booked the local theatre and thought, I wonder if I can write a menopause show. Something about menopause. I'm a musician as well. I'm a musical director. Can I write some music about menopause in some way? How can I convey relevant information, research-based evidence, make it funny to make it palatable? I hadn't done stand-up comedy before, but I'd been a nurse lecturer as well for about 30 years. And I've always wanted to say things, but I can't say them. So I thought this is my opportunity to say the things that I can't say. My brain fog was absolutely dreadful. So I put together a presentation. So I had to have a presentation to the slides to remind me what I was doing. Otherwise I would forget. And yeah, that's what I did. So I did a show. I didn't know whether it would work or not. I said, I'll do one. If it works, hurrah. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I did a sellout show, so to our local theatre, which is about 350 people, and it sold out, and the audience reactions were fantastic. I loved it. I played up all the way through. We completely overran because the more people laugh, the more I play. Well, that's just my nature. The more people laugh, the more I play up, and I absolutely loved it. And I've been touring now, and I've spoken to about 5,500 women and men. I've had 9 women come forward to say, because I talk about breast examination. You mentioned my enormous boobs, and I teach women because we're not taught how to self-examine. We're missing a trick in general practice. That's something I think that we need to kind of look at. But so I was teaching women with this enormous pair of boobs so they could see me up in the circle doing it. And from these shows, 9 women have come forward to say, I didn't know how to examine myself. And I have now. I've gone away, I've examined myself, and I found a lump, or I've got a skin change, or my nipples inverted. And I've gone and seen my GP. I've been referred to the breast clinic. I've been treated for breast cancer, and I've survived. And there were 2 women from my very first show. And I said, if I do it for one person and make a difference, then I've done a good job. And I'll do it again. So I have. So I've carried on 5,500 women to try and empower them to look after themselves, really, over the next good 30 years of their lives. So
and it's wonderful, and we love that word, don't we? We had a little chat before we came on the recording to say that empowerment. If I put a thread through my whole life, I think those have been the best times when I felt empowered. You know, and I think the life course for women presents us with many opportunities to feel empowered, even when we don't think we can be. So that's wonderful. So, you know, the reality is, I mean, I remember us talking, and we talked about busting myths, and you've said that you are tired about dated advice, like just take your cardigan off, you know, really unhelpful things like that. Or I had said to me, do you think you're an anxious first time mother? Do you think you need a holiday?
Yeah.
Well, I think I bloody well do, actually. Navigating perimenopause with about 25 symptoms and a 2-year-old in tow. I think I need more than a holiday, quite honestly. I need to win the lottery. But what's the worst menopause myth you've heard, and how have you tackled that with humour?
I think a lot of it is to do with anxiety. It really is to do with anxiety. And I talk on stage particularly about, now I'm only 5 foot tall. I look a lot taller on a screen, but
we all do on a Zoom call.
I look a lot taller on stage. I always get off stage and women always say, oh, you're much shorter than you look on stage. They also say, oh, you're much younger than you look on stage as well, which they don't need to add. They don't need to add.
No, we don't need that.
Don't need that. But I always struggle. So I'm 5 foot, but in my head, I think I'm 6 foot. I really do. I think I'm 6 foot tall. But when I was perimenopausal, I thought I was about 3 foot, and I lost all my confidence. I couldn't drive. I couldn't drive it. I couldn't go on a motorway anymore. I wouldn't drive in the dark. I had a young child as well, and it was absolutely awful. And yet my GP said, not only just take your cardigan off, dear. He just said, oh, you're just an anxious person because you're a single mother. And I said, well, I'm not really, actually. I'm a really, really confident person. But he fell over himself to find anything other than menopause. So he would also say, well, we'll give you some pills for anxiety. Well, I'm not. Oh, well, you're depressed then. No, well, no, I'm not depressed. Oh, well, you're just stressed then. And it was almost like any other excuse for that.
Yes.
And then I remember attending a lecture when I was a more junior nurse, but I was menopausal. And I remember attending this lecture, and the GP said to the consultant who was lecturing about menopause, do you have anything for sister? And I said, and I kind of looked at him and said, what do you mean? And he said, well, she's clearly menopausal. Do you have anything for her? Any samples? And I was outraged. How dare he?
Well, that would be an employment tribunal right now. Can I just say for anyone listening to this is cue employment tribunal.
Yes, but we're going back,
Yeah, but do you know what, Zeph? It's still very much carrying on today.
Absolutely. It's just, and I don't think it's, I think it is people mocking that, but it's you can't do that. But, in the workplace, you must have empathy for people. And I talk about in the show, I had a colleague who, every day would come in and I'd say, hello, how are you? She'd say, oh, I'm fine. And then one day she came in and she kind of lingered by my desk and I said, how are you doing? And she went, well, I'm all right. Did you have a good weekend? No, not really. I thought I'd murdered my husband. And I said, my goodness, what happened? And she said, well, I hit him over the head with a bag of frozen mints and knocked him out cold. And she felt that absolute rage, but nobody had picked up that she was coming in every day, and actually she got to a point and we should have spotted it. But menopause wasn't a thing then because we didn't talk about it. Whereas now, I think we really would pick it up. But she would be too embarrassed to talk to anybody about it. But that's how she was feeling. Isn't that awful to get to that point? He didn't die, by the way. And she served up the mints to him for his dinner.
Right. Yeah, we're not condoning domestic violence at all in any shape or form because actually, that is an important thing to say too. But that is it, isn't it? It's like I think we can all relate to that because we don't bring those parts of ourselves to work to go, do you know what? I'm unraveling at home every night I go home, by the way. Do you know I'm constantly shouting at the kids? Do you know what? Me and my husband argue in the car all the time because I feel like that anxiety about driving. So I think it is. I think we can break down and if you look to the left and right of you and someone else is laughing, you're not alone, really, intrinsically, don't you?
Yeah.
So actually then let's talk about audience reactions a little bit because your shows have been called and I've looked at so much of your stuff online, knicker-drenchingly good. I mean, if that doesn't pique your interest, I don't know what will. So we love that. But what's the most unexpected reaction you've ever had from an audience member?
It's the men.
Okay, do share.
Not just shouting "dry vagina" within 4 minutes into the show, because I do get the men to shout separately from the women and they will holler "dry vagina." Although there was a man a couple of weeks ago, I did a show and he was the only man in the audience. And at the beginning of the show, he was sat in his seat. And there's a couple of points in the show where I have the lights up. But as the lights went up, I saw him sort of sliding down in his chair. He just kind of disappeared. But the most surprising reaction is I think I've had men will wait at the stage door. So I come out and I kind of think, oh, they're waiting for me at the stage door. But they're not waiting for me at the stage door. What they're waiting for is to say, this has been so enlightening for them. They hadn't understood what their wives were going through or their partners. They hadn't understood what their mothers were going through. And that had really, really helped them. The other thing is younger women. So I had a young woman come to the show with an older woman from a shop that I'd been in and said, oh, why don't you come to the show? And the young woman, when I went back in to buy something from the shop, she just went, oh, your show was fantastic. I now can help my mother. And I didn't know I needed to start examining my boobs now. And so she was doing that. She was with a young girl that was 17 and she went, oh, I'm just so overwhelmed. And I said, what's the matter with you? And she said, oh, all she goes on about is I must examine my boobs now. And every month she tells me on the first of the month, have you examined your boobs this month? Have you examined your boobs this month? And I said, but that's great, isn't it? And she went, well, yeah, but, But so the show isn't just for older people or middle-aged women. It's for all sorts of people and quite a number of very much advanced years ladies. I had two. They'd won tickets to the show and they came and they sat on the front row and I wasn't quite sure what they'd make of it, but it was knicker-drenchingly good. Yes. So she said, I'm glad I wore a pad tonight.
Oh, that is brilliant. That is brilliant. I love that.
But she said, I wish I knew about all of this 30, 40 years ago, because it would have helped me so much. I had such a horrible menopause. And I would have done the exercises to music. I would have done, pelvic floor exercises. Yes. So it's that. So what I'm saying, I think, is, yes, I think the reaction is that people will take that knowledge further and they now have an empathy with other people and that it's a show for all ages and it's very diverse and very inclusive. So
I love that. And you do make it really interesting. Like you talked about the history when I saw you
yeah,
performing. And that is fascinating. The narratives. I mean, certainly in our workplace sessions, Zeph, we have a lot of young people. We actually do
yeah,
part of our things. We talk about the narratives around menopause, and there's one consistency. The narratives are largely negative. So if
they
you can
are.
imagine, like I say to my daughter, who's 19, what do you think about the menopause? She said, I'd rather not think about that because it all sounds so doom and gloom and negative. But the reality is we've got to change that narrative, which is
It's
actually,
liberating.
it's liberating.
It's liberating. And do you know what? I'm postmenopausal now. I'm still on HRT, but I'm postmenopausal. But do you know what? It's fantastic because I can wear white trousers if I want to now.
And you don't have to have a massive bag with absolutely everything in it.
No, you can wear stripes. You can do what you like, wear what you like, say what you like. I think now we're far more. I think it is liberating. You're not having to worry about that. Maybe your children have grown up. Maybe my son's left home, so I can spend money on wine and crisps and
Just the wine and crisps.
just wine and crisps. Nothing else, just wine and
She's
crisps.
so simple. That's all she needs. Wine
That's
and
all
crisps.
I need,
Yeah.
wine and crisps. But we have to think about that. Women, the narrative is that women have been castigated for not having periods. We've been castigated for having periods. They look back 30,000 years. I think it was Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, said, there is history that there have been post reproductive women who have looked after looked after children and sick people in the cave, because women 30,000 years ago, we know that they were much taller, we know that they were much stronger, that they would go out hunting, they would do everything, they'd bring the kill home, they wouldn't just be picking berries, but they'd be bringing the creatures,
Yes.
chopping them up and everything else. So but there was, at that time, there was a purpose for postmenopausal women, post-reproductive
100%.
women.
I can't remember the name of the book at the moment, but that's classic. It's by my bed, but you'll love this book, and I'll put it in the show notes at the end. So it goes something like this. So we obviously all know about Genghis Khan, great Mughal leader. What we don't realize is that if it weren't for Genghis Khan's stepmother, who raised many children in that family because the father died. Actually, she was the person who led them all to abundant land. She was the one who kept them going. We see that in orca whales, elephants, matriarchal systems.
Yeah.
So we have wisdom.
Yes.
It's not, it's in my science head on, and this might resonate with you. It is unnatural. When you look at most mammals, it's unnatural in the grand scheme of things for us to be. Why do we live so long after our reproductive years? What are we here to do? Well,
Exactly.
we're here to pass on that wisdom.
Yes, absolutely. And they talk about, was reading some research the other day about menopausal brains being rewired. So we get rewired at puberty, and then we get rewired again. Obviously, I had a terrible brain fog, so mine was being completely rewired all the time. So being completely rewired to wisdom.
Yes.
To being able to process experience, to be able to understand all of that. And we pass on that wisdom to our daughters, to our sons, to our families, to our, however many children and grandchildren and great grandchildren. That's what we are. Even if you think of sort of biblical terms, grey-haired women are considered wise. You get wise if you've got grey hair. Well, that's my excuse anyway.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I'm sticking. Yeah, and I agree with all of that. And I think it's particularly when you think about businesses who have started to embrace that. You've got companies like EasyJet, which are really proactively campaigning to get the midlife women, the million or so that have exited the workplace. They are dramatically trying to entice them back with all sorts of packages. So
look at MI5. They're trying to recruit middle-aged women with grey hair as spies because nobody would suspect us.
Well, can I tell you a story about a grey-haired lady in Marks and Spencer's, which I actually witnessed myself?
Oh, go on.
I used to see this lady always on a Friday in Marks and Spencer. And this is the classic about those biases that we have around people, which can actually work to your advantage. Used to come in the most beautiful, what I would call a Red Riding Hood red coat. And it was beautiful. It's one of those ones that nipped in at the waist, Zeph, and it went out. So almost like a dress coat, if you know what I'm talking about. I'd see this lady always walking around, only ever bought bananas. Anyway, happened to see the police come in one day.
Oh,
Said lady in red coat at the checkout, and I am not joking you, she literally had opened this coat
she had a
and
chicken up a jumper.
steaks, premium
Oh,
steaks,
no.
about 12 packets of steaks in this coat. And it's like an urban myth where I live here in sleepy Devon. And whenever you go to the Marks and Spencer, she was absolutely known for it.
No.
So she'd go in because, and then
Nobody
what?
suspected.
No one suspected. And then when before she got caught, she sort of changed up her repertoire a little bit. And so what she started to do, she'd get a whole load of shopping, and I nearly fell for this. I was behind this lady in Barnstable, didn't have the red coat on. She was there and trying to put her card in. It's not working. She said, "Oh dear." She said, "I can't remember the number again. Can't remember the number again." And I could see the checkout lady getting really arsy with her. And I was like,
Ah,
"What has the world come to? Like, let's just show a bit of compassion and kindness." And I was about to say,
I'll pay for her.
and the lady said to me, "Well, I'm sorry, if you haven't got the money, you'll have to come back." Anyway, I said to the lady, I said, "Oh," I said, "I felt really sorry for that lady." She went, "Can I just tell you, she comes in here every month trying that on, and 9 out of 10 people end up paying for her."
Oh,
So isn't it really interesting that whole bias thing? It can work for us and
yeah.
against us. So
Yeah.
so I was
And
going to
got a
ask you,
red coat.
yeah, and a red coat, yeah. Price of red coats gone right up. So I was going to ask you then, in terms of laughing and learning and changing the conversation,
Yeah.
and we know humour is so good. Um, have you seen real shifts in people's understanding then from people who've watched your performance? I know you mentioned 9 people have, and you told us a really
Yeah.
powerful story about someone had got in contact with you as a result of
Yeah.
your seeing your performance.
Yeah. I think you so there's a shift. So we know that you make good memory connections. So when you laugh, you release dopamine. If you have dopamine, research says that you'll make better memory connections. And I know that somebody wrote a review of my show and said, I came along to watch a comedy show, but my goodness me, underneath it all, you have a really hard hitting message. And I've gone away with so much knowledge, but didn't realize it. And it's kind of like stuff you've laughed and stuff has gone into long term memory. So she suddenly found herself doing pelvic floor exercises in the car to music, which is one of the things that I teach as well. And of course, there's an awful lot of laughter that goes on with that. And people are kind of looking at each other and laughing. So there's a little bit of sort of social bonding and all sorts of things. But I think there is something in the laughing. There's something in the laughing. There's something in the laughing in the dark that helps as well. And some of the stuff is just a little bit naughty. So it's not a filthy show. It's not really, really rude, but it's a little bit naughty. And there are euphemisms and all sorts of things, but it's a shared experience as well. So I think the laughter is shared. There's the shared learning. We're all on a journey together. I'm not poking fun at the audience. They can all laugh at me for as much as they like for all the stupid things I've ever done during menopause. But within that laughter, I think it's safe. One, it's dark, so it's safe to laugh in the dark. It's safe to laugh with people that you don't know or you do know. And all of that is building those memories, building those memories and building those memories. We don't laugh about boob checking. We do laugh about, going and having a mammogram. We laugh about bra fitting in John Lewis's, and buying a Doreen bra, for example. And there's all sorts of things around that. But yeah, I think that the laughter certainly enhances that learning, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, and certainly with my psychology sort of bent hat placed on my head, I would say whenever we do have that experience of laughter, it's those powerful connections, like you say, and the brain doesn't discriminate. If something is emotional, it will remember it, so it can be held in negative emotion or
Yeah,
positive emotion. And so
yeah,
you're so right. And I see this a lot, and certainly in relation to your talk, it just gave a buzz to people talking
yeah,
immediately and
yeah.
breakouts and just communicating. And like you say, those barriers dropping. So I suppose the next natural question then to ask you is, where do you hope or perceive the conversation around menopause is heading? You know, what role do you think will humour continue to play a very important role in smashing the stigma, not just maybe around menopause, but also lots of women's health conditions?
Um, I think one thing I was going to sort of add, I think just this is my brain fog, add on the back of that, is I have to talk about some very, very serious subjects. So we kind of go along and we're laughing, and the tone of the show is it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. And the lowest point really is talking about death statistics from 2018. And the point of that is two things really. So one is about Alzheimer's is the number one cause of death of women in 2018. Those are the last figures that we have before COVID kind of muddied the waters. So Alzheimer's is a big thing. So we need to start thinking about that. There's research going on. Is it related to menopause? These are diseases that come on 10 to 15 years after menopause has stopped, really. Then you've got heart disease and stroke. So we know that there is something related to that to do with menopause. Higher incidence in women than it is in men. Then we've got COPD and smoking related diseases. And then we've got right at the bottom, 3.7% of women will die from breast cancer. So then I kind of talk about breast cancer and those statistics. And then I'm saying, what can we do about it? So what we're doing about it is trying to change that thinking and empowering women to look after themselves. We know that a bigger cancer risk for women is having a BMI of over 30. A bigger cancer risk for women is smoking. Just don't do it. But that's not even as much as being overweight. We know that alcohol plays a part. I said in Stamford that we should only drink. Stamford's very posh, by the way. It's a bit like Barnstable. I said, in fact, I think I had the same reaction on stage in Barnstable. And I said, you should only really be drinking 2 units of alcohol a week. And they went, and I like got sucked off the stage. And we know that women should exercise. We need to keep up our muscle mass. We need to keep our bone strength and our bone health and all those things. And also then I'm saying you need to have good checks. You get a free NHS health check every year. Go and have it. Check your cholesterol, check your blood pressure. That's free. Any lump, any bump, anything that's abnormal, then you need to sort it out. So the show comes right down, and that's a thread that runs all the way through it, lightened by some very funny moments. So where are we going in the future? Women need to be empowered to take responsibility for their health. Don't just sit there saying, oh, and I don't really know what to do. Actually, I'm helping you to understand what you need to do to live a good life. Break down those taboos, not just about menopause, but actually taking responsibility for your own health. And then share that with your daughters, with your sons, with your partners, with your mothers, with everybody. So actually, where are we going? Not just held in this cocoon about talking about menopause. So break down those taboos. It's like breaking an eggshell. We'll break the eggshell of those taboos, talking about vaginal health and everything. And then we can accept our responsibility for ourselves, learn more, know more, and then it helps us live longer and better lives. Make the best of those good 30 years. Be liberated to look after your own health. That's it. That's the message. Health promotion, disease prevention. And we need to take responsibility for that. And it's all very well saying, oh, I can't get an appointment at the doctor's. No, you might not be able to, but go and do your research online from a proper site. Go and have a look on the NHS site. Go and have a look on Women's Health Concern. Go and have a look on Rock My Menopause or Menopause Matters. Those are research, evidence-based places to find information from. Don't go to the places that say, oh, I turned around 3 times with half a coconut full of honey in my hand and waved it under a full moon. And, am I going to get better for my menopause or not? Go to proper places. Don't go to the rubbish sites, and don't buy anything unless it's researched.
Yeah, 100%. I wrote down health promotion, disease prevention, take responsibility, be empowered.
Exactly. Be empowered and be liberated. you know, all I'm doing really amidst all of this is giving women permission to say, go and do some research for yourself. I'm giving you a little bit of knowledge. You know, I could stand for 7 hours and talk. I did a show last week and somebody came up and went, oh, hello, I'm a sexual health nurse. And you talk about having an itchy vagina, it could be something else. And I said, yes, it could well be something else. It could be thrush, but it could, you know, it could be some nasty disease. But I can't talk about everything. I can only do the things that really are going to be relevant to the majority of people that are there. That's it.
Yeah.
And it counts for men as well. And I talk to men about it too. And I say to men, you know, yes, this is a statistic that applies to women. However, you know, these are statistics that apply to you. You know, if you've got problems with your prostate, go and get that checked out. So
Yeah, it's that message. I think it is, you know, health promotion, disease prevention. It's like you can only do so much. You can't force people to do stuff. We can put the invitation out.
yes. But give them permission and say it's okay for you to go and look this in the proper place. But this is kind of what you need to know. Just because you can't get an appointment at the doctor, you could have done all the research before. You could have a really good doctor's appointment or a health professional appointment because you're going to research this. You're going to look it up. You're going to go in, and when they say, "How can I help you?" you can say, I'm here to talk about my menopause. I've read about this, and this. I think I have 912 symptoms of menopause today. And I'd like to discuss those. I'm interested in having HRT. I don't really want a tablet. I'd rather have transdermal HRT. Thank you very much. And I'd also like to have a blood test to check my cholesterol. And I'd like to have my NHS health check. And what else can I be doing to make me better? And all of that in you must have a 20-minute appointment. Don't have a 10-minute appointment. And this has only come from my love of general practice and patient care. Really, it really, my whole mission in life is health promotion, disease prevention, but it makes it so much more palatable with some comedy or with a funny song or a pair of knitted tits, you know. So it's that's what people are coming to see. And if I could do it for free, I would do it for free. I would go anywhere and I would do it for free, but I can't have to make a living. But it's not about making profit, it's about taking a message. I'm on a mission.
Exactly, and I think we share that, and it is wonderful. So I know there'll be some opportunities between us ourselves,
Yes.
so we can talk more about that later. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, it's an absolute joy to have you. And what I feel from me to you is, and I hope it's a compliment. When I saw you, I instantly thought of the late great Victoria Wood.
That's such a compliment.
I really did, and I really did. And I came home and I just was eulogizing about you to everyone. I said, "Oh my God, you've got to see this person. She's amazing." But what I think you've done brilliantly is you've turned your own lived experience, which probably at times was quite painful, and you've turned it into your power and your passion piece. And
absolutely.
So what we're going to do is we're going to put your socials in all the show notes.
I thought you were going to ask me to sing a song there. No, you're right.
Well, I didn't even see you got your guitar or your ukulele, but she's got them all behind her. So we'll tease it up. If you see Zeph Churchill at a venue near you, do not delay. Get a ticket because you'll get a mix of laughter, learning, no nonsense menopause truths, and I think that is a mandate that every person should sort of grab with both hands. But if people do want to know more about you, Zeph, is there somewhere they can look at straight away after watching this video?
They can go and have a look on zephchurchill.com.
As simple as that. And tell people
when I've quickly updated my website. Yes, go to zephchurchill.com.
And what's Zeph short for, if at all?
Zephany. It's short for Zephany. And ironically, it comes from The Trouble with Litching by John Wyndham. And Zephany, the protagonist, was injected with youth serum. And I went great at 27.
That is brilliant. At age 27?
Yeah, I started going great at 27.
Wow.
I
But
know.
I think I think it's beautiful. I really do. I'm going grey slowly.
Right.
Well, not so slowly, under here, really quickly.
Ah,
So my mum is gorgeous. My mum is what I've got, like I would describe you, like salt and pepper. It's just beautiful, and you can wear any colour basically. But
well, like I used to dye it. I used to love dyeing. I had hair sort of your colour, chestnut brown hair. It was lovely. And then I had a dyeing disaster, and I dyed it, and I was allergic to the dye, and like had to go to
And you know,
head up
in perimenopause, that's I
there. You
came
go.
home one day and my mum's face looked like a football. My
Yeah,
mum
there
was
you
a
go.
night nurse and she'd put her hair colour on, gone to sleep, woke up and literally I could not see my mum's eyes. I went, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, mum, what has happened to you?" And so it is that allergic response that we go through,
Yes,
isn't it?
absolutely. So many things change. I remember going to the dentist, and I kept saying, my tongue is really sore, and he kept saying, try a different
It's
a brand,
toothpaste, isn't it?
different toothpaste. Oh well, it's still really sore. Oh well, it's probably maybe it's oral thrush. And I said, well, I don't know where I've got that from. And then he said, oh, try this and try that. Anyway, it turned out it was menopause. It was a lack of estrogen was causing me to have a sore tongue.
I
It was
know.
just really weird. And then I was hypothyroid, and that was, oh well, that's menopause, and it wasn't menopause, it was thyroid. And it's just everything is so often blurred, which is really important. Why, if you're going to the GP, anybody's going to the GP, write down your symptoms, because it's far easier to say, right, that one, that one, that one are related to that one, and those two are unrelated. And it just gives you some idea of what's going on. Is this menopause?
Great
Is it not
advice.
menopause?
Great
And
advice.
because otherwise somebody will just say, like my GP said, take your cardigan off. Here's some tablets because you're anxious. No, you're not anxious. All right, you're depressed. No, you're not depressed. All right, you're stressed. Every single reason, but not menopause.
Yeah, and you know that what culminated for myself, Zeph, after all my multiple visits, I had a code applied to my
Oh,
notes. And you know what I'm going to
I
say?
know, I know.
It was put as worried well because they
Frequent flyer.
could not connect the dots. And
Yeah.
so every medical professional that came into contact with me already had a negative bias. So
Yeah.
the advice that Zeph has just given is so powerful. Please really do pay attention to that.
And the other thing is, make sure, phone up your surgery and say, is there somebody that specializes in menopause?
Yes.
Because otherwise you'll end up speaking to, well, you might speak to the cleaner, I don't know, but
You might get more sense from her, possibly.
probably, but you might speak to somebody that really hasn't got a clue. And it's not always about being fobbed off, but it's about being signposted to the correct information. But if you can see the right person on the first go, and you've got all that information behind you, you'll have a really good collaborative consultation, and that's what you need.
That's really powerful. Oh, Zeph, I could speak to you for much, much longer than we've had, and that's the great sign of when you've had a good time. You're always left wanting more.
More.
I truly believe that more. We don't have a time for an encore, but if we did, you would be the person who'd get it. But for now, thank you so much,
Thank
Zeph
you,
Churchill.
Amanda. Thank
And I
you.
know we'll definitely, I'd love to invite you back, and we'll have more conversations. But for now, Zeph Churchill, the brilliant comedian, educating us about menopause and all other things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda.